What's up, beautiful creators? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. First, shout out to all the new subscribers. I appreciate you guys. Thank you and welcome to my page. And for all of those who've been following me, I thank you so much for your continued support and riding with me along this journey. It's been amazing. I'm still growing in this space in my page and figuring out what it is that I want to, do, what it is that I want to bring to you all. So I just thank you guys for supporting me through this journey. I'm excited because today I finally got my hands on a C200. Well, I'll give you the backstory. I sold all my Sony equipment. I have no camera. I have nothing Sony related because the goal was to buy a cinema camera. And so before the Canon, the Canon head just came out. I know Sony's coming out. BlackMagic just came out with the 12K. But my goal was to really get into film and commercial and really set myself up for what I want to do future-wise. And so I wanted to get a cinema camera. I was looking at the Canon C200, the BlackMagic Ursa Mini 4.6, as well as the BlackMagic 6K, because technically it's classified as a cinema camera, but I no longer really wanted to focus on mirrorless, especially not with my film work, more so like I do photography, so maybe buying an R or something like that, or for smaller projects getting a mirrorless. But for bigger projects, I wanted to set myself up and work with bigger productions, which a lot of times in the past mirrorless just didn't do it for me on set. They overheated, or the 30, I had an A7 III, so the 30-minute limit, it just wasn't really robust for me personally. And so my goal was to get rid of all of it, get into the cinema camera, and kind of future-proof myself for what I really want to do. So I got my hands. So really the biggest thing was trying to figure out if I wanted the BlackMagic or the Canon. I come from Canon as a photographer, but I had been using Sony, so really was new overall. With the C200, there were a couple things that I liked about it. The autofocus was the biggest thing. I work alone a lot of times when I'm doing certain projects, and so having that autofocus would be amazing for me for what I do. Also, it being a one-stop shop, having everything already, like I was gonna purchase a used one and it had everything provided, and I wouldn't have needed to go any further or look any further to buy a kit or a rig to set it up because it had everything that I needed. And then I do love the internal ND filters. I know, even just having my Sony A7 III and having to change ND filters and knowing which ones to use and looking at the light of day and like all of that plays a part. And so for me, the C200 was the top just for the things that it already provides. Now, on the flip side, the BlackMagic also provides internal ND filters. It's kind of like a one-stop shop as well. The only difference that I didn't like with that, the BlackMagic Ursa, was that the low light isn't as great, of course, and what else did not like about the BlackMagic? The autofocus was horrible. So for me, I'm trying to think about all the docs that I want to shoot, the commercials that I want to shoot. If I don't have a big team, can it still be done? Can it be run and gun? Those are the biggest things for me. And the BlackMagic Ursa Mini didn't seem as run and gun as the Canon C200. Now, as far as the BlackMagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, the reason why that was also in a running because it is smaller, so I could take it around a lot more when I travel back home and things like that. And the image quality is freaking amazing. And so really there were pros and cons in all of these. So my thought process was that I would get a C200 or BlackMagic or 6K, whatever, as my production camera, which, when clients hire me, that's what I'm going in to do. And I would get like a Canon R5 or R6 for smaller scale. I do a lot of social media influencer kind of work when they work with brands and, things that doesn't require me to bring this bigger production camera. So I would get one of those. And also because I do photography, so I wanted to get a smaller camera to where I can do both photography and smaller projects that don't require my cinema camera. So that was the goal and mindset that I had when looking at the BlackMagic, the 6K, or the Ursa Mini, the 6K, or the C200, was to use that for production and use a smaller mirrorless for photography or smaller, type videos, social media kind of videos. But I've used Sony before for photography. I don't like it, which is why I want to stay away from Sony, because I could easily get Sony, but then I won't have a photo camera, which is what I need. I need one that can do both smaller scale projects and photography, and I'm just not a huge fan of Sony's colors. I'm not a huge fan of just the form factor. It feels like a box is in my hand when I'm trying to take a picture, which is why for me I wanted to go back to Canon. I started with a T2i when I was doing photography and video when I first came out, and then I went to 7D, and then I went to a 5D Mark III. So when it came to photography, I've always been Canon, which is why I was like, I either want to get the R5, R6, or even the EOS R, and that way I have a photo aspect and a video aspect, and then I have my cinema camera. So just so you guys can kind of know where my mind's at, that's kind of my whole thought process. And so it's really hard for me to choose, and so the first step was to get my hands on each camera to see if I liked it. Like, I mean, you can watch so many videos on YouTube and watch other people's videos and see the image quality and be like, it's amazing, but it's not really, it doesn't really help you until you put it in your hands and figure out what you like. And so that was my goal, to put it in my hands, each one, to figure out if I like it. So the first camera that I was able to get into my hands was the Canon C200, which I am shooting on right now. And today I woke up, I was able to play with it. I went to the beach, really test it out, really see how I feel about it. And there are a couple things that I want to share with you all, and hoping that you guys help me figure out what the next camera should be. And so with the C200, I have some footage that I want to show you guys. But again, this was just me taking it out, putting my settings to what I would have, when using my Sony. I got to play with it a little bit, but really it was just going out, guerrilla styling it, and seeing what I thought. The first thing right off the bat was it's so heavy. So getting used to such a heavier camera when I'm coming from a Sony a7 III, which is a mirrorless and it's super light, that was like, I really was just like, whoa, like it's not something I could just, I'm so small, so it's not something I can just hold with one hand without it like tilting or shaking or anything like that. So that was the first thing that I noticed right off the bat, is having to, if I do decide to get a cinema camera, having to make sure that I'm strong in my arms, because it definitely was heavy. For the most part, I had the Canon 24-70 lens on it, and I swapped it out every now and then for the Sigma 18-35. But I was able to hold it with the handle, which was great, hit record with the handle, which was great. But yes, that was the first thing. Definitely was super heavy, which I'm sure the Ursa Mini is going to be heavy as well. Also, the con also with the Blackmagic pocket cinema camera is I would have to rig it all up. I forgot to mention in the beginning, but yes, that was also a con. Anyways, so yes, the first thing was that it was super heavy. But what I did like about it being out, because when we first left, we left at about 8 a.m. in the morning, and when we got to the beach, it was a lot of smog. It was very, foggy, cloudy. And so, when I started shooting, it was cool being able to test the ND filters. They worked amazing. I was able to keep the lens at a 2.8, and then with switches to my Sigma, keep it at a 1.8 just to kind of see. So that was really, really great, not having to change my settings, but just stop down my ND filters. And then when it got sunny, because we stayed there for like probably 4 hours, and so we got sunny again, being able to just stop down was like super easy and not really having to change so much of my settings. I shot all of the video. I really wanted to play around with just the different codecs that Canon offered me, so I did shoot, and I didn't have a C-Fast card because again, I don't own the camera, so I didn't have a C-Fast card, so I didn't really get to test the 4K raw. I was able to just shoot 4K UHD at 420 8-bit. So I did a lot of that in 60 frames per second, as well as just regular 23.976 frames per second. And then I did test the 120 frames per second slow-mo. The one thing I didn't like about it, because again, it's not my camera, so I can't configure my settings, but I didn't like how, I'm looking for the 120, like the number, because again, I'm coming from Sony, so I'm looking for the number, and you actually have to go in and go to slow motion recording, which was new for me, because I'm like, where's 120? All I kept seeing was 60 frames per second, and then I kind of had to Google it, and then I saw how to do it. And what I do like about it is it already does 180 rule when it comes to shutter, so I didn't really have to figure out my shutter, and so that was really cool. When it came to the 120 frames per second, there was a couple things I didn't like. I know, and again, I'm really just kind of comparing it right now to my Sony because that was the last camera that I had. So like I said, I'm not well versed in this. This is just me trying to learn which camera I like with just putting it in my hands and kind of just going out and seeing what I think. So if I'm wrong at any of this, you know, correct me nicely, give me insight, give me advice that would help when determining what camera I want. But one thing I didn't like about the 120 was, one, it was super soft. I tried really hard to sharpen it and things like that, but it was really soft, which when I think about it, when I shot with my Sony, it wasn't that soft. And of course the Sony is 8-bit as well. And then I also didn't like that you can't autofocus. So the autofocus is useless. There's no autofocus when you're shooting 120 frames per second on a C200. When I shot Sony 120 frames per second, I was still able to, especially with my Sigma 1835, I was still able to use autofocus, which, you know, is cool. And if I'm shooting 120 frames per second, I'm shooting somebody skating or things like that, like it would be great to be able to have that autofocus. And so because the reason why I was thinking about autofocus was that I love the fact that it has autofocus. But I mean, when I was thinking about the Canon, I love the fact that it has autofocus, but now I can't really use it when I'm shooting 120. And I don't always shoot 120, so it's not that it really matters, but it's kind of like, why get rid of it with the 120? I don't know. Because with the Sony, you can, especially when you using an MC11 adapter with my Sigma, I was able to use autofocus on any Kodak or any frames per second. So those are the two things that I did notice when it came to 120. Outside of that, with shooting 4K UHD, I felt like the image quality was great. I wish I was able to test it with the 4K RAW because that's where I hear it really shines at. But I guess I don't really need to test it because I already know that that's great. I really was just trying to test all the other Kodaks because for me, the kind of owning the C200 was that it didn't have a lot for me to work with. It had 8-bit 1920 by 1080 or 8-bit 4K UHD, and that was it. It didn't have ProRes. It didn't have any other thing, and so that's really what I wanted to test to see how the image came out for myself. Hey guys, so I actually had to take a second from the actual video because I forgot to mention one little thing that would change my score with the C200. I forgot to mention a workflow. Now, while I was editing this video that you're currently watching, I realized that honestly, the C200 files are freaking amazing. Like the footage that comes out of it and the color that comes from this camera is amazing. I remember with my Sony, even shooting talking heads like this for YouTube, having to color it was just kind of tedious and draining to try to match my skin tone and things like that. But bringing this footage into Premiere and really only having to play around with curves just a little for at least the talking heads was so easy, and I just think that raises the score from a 8 to a 9, because not only do you want a camera that is great in the field, but you want a camera that also produces footage that makes it so much easier in post-production, especially for me since I shoot and edit. And so having that footage that automatically is so easy to color grade is by far like again, I was a Canon user in photography, so I already knew this, but just being reminded again, especially coming from Sony, which it takes a little bit more work personally for me, maybe not for you, but for me it definitely takes a lot of work to try to like match my colors. This was so easy to do, and so that definitely changes the score, but we'll get back into the video. Let's go. I really like the camera. Again, I have to get used to the size. The fact that having the ND filters already in there, just being able to just have all of my buttons like right on the side and I can just change them instantly, and having the monitor and being able to like see everything I need, it was just such an easy camera to use with it being my first time, and not really, I researched but not a lot, and so like right off the bat it was so easy. And I'm just really excited for this journey of figuring out what my next camera should be. Again, I do want to do docs, I do want to do commercials, and so that's why this was in the running. But my next thing to get my hands on will be the BlackMagic 6K as well as the BlackMagic Ursa. You know, so it's just interesting to get my hands on it to see if I like it, because the thing is, you can see amazing footage on YouTube, you know, but again, I'm not that creator. I didn't shoot it. Who's to say my footage will come out that way. You really have to test it for yourself. And then also you have to know what the pros and cons are yourself. Like, somebody can go on YouTube and beef up a camera because they really like it. So it's really up to you to like figure it out. And I didn't want to buy a $4,000, $5,000 camera before testing it. Again, if there are any things that I missed or that I didn't do right, definitely let me know, because this has been really hard for me to try to figure out what camera I want. But I just wanted to take you guys through this journey. So today was really cool, just being able to play with the C200. Right now, if I had to give it a score or scale, I would say it's about a 8. And I say the reason why I say 8 is because, one, the not having a lot of Kodaks could be an issue for me in the long run. I really want to future proof myself. And then just the heaviness, which, you know, eventually I have to get over if I decide to get a Ursa or a C200. Like, even if I rig my, you know, 6K up, if I got that one, then it will be heavy. But this should be like a everyday when I'm shooting kind of thing. So really trying to get used to that. But honestly, I don't know. Who knows what camera I'm gonna end up with? I honestly don't know right now. I'm really trying to figure it out. I don't want to spend the money on a camera that I don't like or I can't future proof myself with. So I'm really just taking my time, and I just thank you guys for going on the journey with me to figure this out. But yeah, if you guys know more about any of these cameras, let me know. If you guys have these cameras, let me know why you like them, what you think about them. If you like this video, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and I hope you guys like the footage. Let me know what you guys think about the footage as well. This was just purely just going out and shooting, not trying to get into like too much of the technical side, because honestly, I'm not that kind of person. If it works for me, if it gets the images that I need, that I'm looking for, that's all that really matters. But yeah, just let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon in the next video.